So I will welcome everyone to Career in the Arts Day at the Sheldon Art Galleries. And I'm Becky Gunter. I'm the gallery coordinator and education manager here at the galleries. And I welcome three women here in the arts professions that are going to discuss their career paths and how they got where they are today. And I would like you all to introduce yourselves first. So maybe we'll start with Jamie. And tell
Sure,
us.
my name is Jamie Allen, and I'm the Stephen B. and Janice G. Ashley Curator and Interim Head at the Department of Photography at the George Eastman Museum in Rochester, New York. It's a really long title, but that's called an endowed title. It means that somebody gave money specifically for my position and to pay me, which is amazing. So that's why I have to say all of those words.
Okay, Jessica.
My name is Jessica Thornton. I am an assistant professor at the University of Missouri in the School of Visual Studies, and I teach drawing and painting.
Awesome. And then this morning I've asked Chris Peimann to jump on. One of our other presenters was not able to be with us today. So Chris, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. I'm Chris Hyman. I'm the Director of Advancement here at the Sheldon. That is a new title for me. I was Marketing and Publicity Director for the last 15 plus years. That means that I am in charge of marketing and fundraising here at the Sheldon and oversee both of those departments, all aspects of advertising, public relations, ticketing, advertising, and so much more. So I'm happy to be here and jump in this morning.
Thank you so much for being able to jump on. So I guess the point of Career Day is to kind of show the path that you took to get to your positions that you're in right now, and kind of what maybe changed your path, maybe in school or after school, or the jobs you got along the way. But I was going to ask first, what was your career goal before college or during college? And I guess at some point we'll get to how did you get where you are. So Jamie, if you want to kind of talk about your college experience.
Yeah, I think coming out of high school, I had two career paths that I was interested in. One was being a pastry chef, and possibly going to culinary school. And the other one was fine art photography. And fine art photography won out because I got a scholarship to attend the University of Arizona in Tucson. And so I think I didn't have a specific career goal because I had no model for what it was to be a working artist. I just thought, I'll go to school or study photography. I'll figure it out when I get there.
Awesome. Jessica?
Let's see, I was thinking about this and thinking back to when I was young, and I would like to say that I didn't know that I wanted to be an artist, but I found old Christmas lists that list nothing but art supplies. So it was something that I just sort of followed my path. But I remember being in high school and then all of a sudden realizing I want nothing other than to go to art school. And I applied to only art schools, one art school that I really wanted to go to, Pratt Institute, and thank God I got in. So that sort of took me there. I didn't know that I wanted to be a painter. At first, I was in Pratt Institute and I was going to be an industrial design major. And because I was thinking, painting is silly. You can't, make a living out of that. That's unrealistic. But I ended up going to a very traditional other art school after that to become a painter. So it just, I think part of what you want pulls you, right? It forces you to go to this place that you need to be. So like I said, I would say that I didn't have any goals, but they were in there. They were just not fully realized yet. But art school was the big one.
Okay, Chris, same question.
Well, funnily enough, kind of like Jessica, I was always involved in the arts. It's what our family did for fun, and on vacations, we went to the symphony, we went to the Fox, we enjoyed music at home, we loved art. I was always in the choir and school musical, but for some reason I wanted to be a lawyer. And when I got to college and started majoring in that, I quickly realized, like, this isn't fun. This isn't what I want to do. I don't have any interest or passion for this. I just had always thought I wanted to do that. And it never occurred to me in high school that all of those things that I loved and was involved in could be a career. So the great thing was that when I was at St. Louis University, majoring in pre-law, I went and expressed all of this to my counselor at the time and told her, this is what I want to do. I'm interested in helping promote and create and introduce people to all these things that I love. And she said, you want to be a communications major? And in that, I realized that I could take those skills to the arts. I interned at a lot of different places while I was in college, and my final internship was at the St. Louis Symphony. And that's when I really had that aha moment that these skills that I have, this creativity that I'm enjoying in my college work and life, I can apply that to my professional career and also get back to doing these artistic things that I loved. I couldn't be a professional musician. I didn't have that kind of skill or talent, but being able to pursue that along with the degree that I had was just, it was wonderful. And so really, like Jessica said, it's like I didn't necessarily come into college with a path or an idea, but I knew what I enjoyed and I knew what I loved. And that's what helped me kind of get to the point where I was able to find my path.
Okay, so Chris mentioned internships, and I know that's a big important part of shaping how you get to where you're wanting to go. So did Jamie and Jessica, did you have experiences with internships, or what in your college career also helped shape your goals?
Yeah, so like I said, I entered college thinking I'd be a photographer. And I left being an art historian. So midway through, I was taking art history classes, and in particular, a history of photography course that I just really enjoyed and really excelled at. And one of my mentors kind of guided me towards a gallery management class. I had no idea what that meant. No idea. I didn't even know that you could have work in a museum when I entered college, right? It never occurred to me that was a job. So I took this gallery management class, loved it. I loved the idea of bringing people the concepts behind what an artist was doing, interpreting that, making it accessible, organizing the space. So I went back to my mentor and said, like, how do I do more of that? And they said, well, you should get an internship at one of the museums. And I said, great. So there were two options, and one of them was not accepting interns. So I went to the University of Arizona Art Museum and had an unpaid internship, which in the world of arts is an unfortunate thing that a lot of people end up doing. I think our world is fortunately changing. This was a long time ago. But that unpaid internship turned into a paid internship. And so I ended up working at that museum for a couple of years. And because the staff was so small, I got to do a little bit of everything. So I worked in the registrar, I helped to catalog the objects, I inventoried their collection of 6,000 things, which was amazing, right? I saw an Andy Warhol, I saw an Alexander Calder, I held the Alexander Calder sculpture on my first day of work. And I remember coming home and being like, oh my gosh, this happened. Who do I tell? You know, it was so exciting. And so at the end of my college career, I ended up doing an extra half a year so that I could double major, because I already had all the photography credits and could be a photography major. So I also got an art history degree, which kind of stunk because at the end I was taking entry-level like science classes my last year of college so that I could beef up my my art history degree. But so I ended up with both of those degrees. And then as I left college, I had no idea how to get a job. And so I went back to a mentor and said, like, now what? Like, I'm graduating, now what? And he said, well, let's get you an internship somewhere. And so I ended up interning here at the George Eastman Museum, then known as the George Eastman House. And just really loved, again, working with the collection, cataloging the collection, making access to the collection. So that was sort of how my career totally changed from something I didn't even know existed to what I'm doing today in that undergraduate era. And then I went back to school and pursued a master's degree in photographic collection management. And so I'm kind of in an odd career path for somebody with a curator's position. Typically, a curator would have a PhD in art history, and I don't. But I've worked really hard, and I think I've proven myself over the years, which is why I've kind of moved up throughout our institution.
Awesome. That's a perfect story for career day and it figuring out, I didn't know that job existed. So Jessica, do you have something?
Yeah, and I also wanted to add something to the last question, which was my parents growing up always said, do something you love. They were both in corporate America and weren't very happy, but they needed to make the money, do the family, blah, blah, blah. But they really encouraged me to do something I love, which was put all my eggs in one basket. I'm going to go do this art thing. But when I got there, I was in New York City. I had a great time, but I realized that I needed to be less of a number. There was a lot of students and the classes were huge, and I wasn't getting this one-on-one attention that I remember getting in high school from my art teacher, from our honor society. There was this great community that I was sort of missing. So I ended up leaving Pratt Institute and heading back home or near home to a small, very traditional classical studies school called Lime Academy College of Fine Arts. And I studied the figure for 4 years. And I was only going there as a sort of in between until I could figure out where I wanted to go or what program I was gonna, try and be a part of next. It was just sort of to keep my hands and my brain moving. So, but I ended up staying there and I ended up getting my degree from there. And I didn't have any internships that I'm sort of thinking about, but what I did do at the school was this opportunity to work with local artists. A lot of the faculty were from surrounding schools like Yale, down south. They'd come up to sort of work with this more traditional sort of space. So internship, my school was kind of like a big internship with lots of different artists working in their fields, teaching painting and sculpture and the real traditional art making process. I had no idea that I was going to love it so much. So that is where my idea of this industrial design major changed into, maybe I could be a painter. Maybe I could possibly do this. These people are doing it. These are people making a living. And I think at that point is where I started understanding the avenue of teaching as an artist, as a possibility for me as a painter to sort of make sure that I was not a starving artist, as they like to, but there was something very legitimate and a path that I could follow. I didn't know it at that time, but I think that's where I got the idea. So no internships from there. We definitely were encouraged to do a lot of searching for residencies and going to different places and being in different areas and learning about different art making practices. So I did, from that space, I think it was after I graduated that it was about going to the Vermont Studio Center or different places where you could spend a month-long residency and do a bunch of work. So I did a lot of those kinds of things and got ready for them undergrad. Most of my work and my stepping into internships and that kind of thing happened directly after it, I would say. So it was great though.
It's fun. And Chris, can you talk more about your internships or your experiences?
Absolutely. And I love both of these stories, Jessica and Jamie, because I think it just shows like a thread through all of this that we had to be willing to kind of change and adapt and not just be stuck thinking like, well, this is my major, so this is what I have to do. And it's so easy to do that and think you're on one path, but the ability to tell yourself and acknowledge and move forward with something different it can be hard to do, especially when you're college age. I think back like how young we were when we all made these decisions. So I love this. But yeah, kind of same sort of thing. I changed my major to communications, and as Jessica said, and Jamie really too, like it was important to find something that I loved and I would be happy doing. And so I interned first at the Red Cross, which was a nonprofit that my family had always been involved in. My dad ran blood drives at our church, and it was something we grew up doing. And so that service, that idea of service was really strong in our family. So that was an amazing internship where I really learned this is what it is like to work in communications at a nonprofit of this size and impact. I then moved on to an advertising agency, which was an amazing experience as well. But what it really taught me was that I didn't want to work at an advertising agency. They had some clients that were really fun and wonderful and great. And then there was stuff that was really boring. And there are people who are so interested in that boring thing. But for me, it just wasn't, I knew that wasn't the right fit. So that was such a beneficial experience because I knew that's not what I wanted to pursue when I graduated. So as I mentioned earlier, my final internship was with the St. Louis Symphony. And it really was that aha moment where I was like, this combines the skills I'm learning, the passion that I have. And so it just, again, that real world experience combined with the classroom teaching, that combination was invaluable. If I would have just stuck with school, who knows where I would have ended up job-wise. So getting out into the world, whether it is with a residency or an internship or a mentorship, as Jamie mentioned, somebody kind of help you find that path to a practical job and something you can make money doing was invaluable. So soon after I graduated, I started here at the Sheldon, just down the street from the Symphony. And yeah, I really credit those internships and that real world experience for getting me to this spot.
And I think if I could just interject one thing, as you're young, don't say yes to as much as you can. You can always, bow out if it's not the right thing, but try it. Especially, I think I tell my students, especially if you're afraid to do it, like force yourself to at least try. Nothing is permanent. You don't have to stay a lot of places. If it's really bad, you can leave. But try and say yes to like as much as you can. If you get an opportunity, take it, seize it, and see. So I love that.
That was actually my next question, is like, what would you tell younger people to think about when they're searching for a career or confused about which direction to go? Or what advice would you have for a younger self about your path?
Yeah, I think that idea that Chris and Jessica both touched on, right? Try it out. Try it out first. It might mean that you have to volunteer and work a weird job on the side, like at a pizza place like I did, or a portrait studio. But I tried it out, right? A portrait studio was not going to be my career goal, but I tried it and I worked there. And what I learned is that I'm really organized and that I'm really good at keeping things moving and being the person that can be a leader and keep the space organized. I also learned a lot of really amazing skills at that portrait studio. Like I was super shy and I had to answer the phone and talk to anybody on the phone, right? And be chatty. I was not a chatty person. I learned those skills, and those are now skills I can use in my everyday job where I have to go and develop a relationship with somebody who's going to donate money or a piece of art to our institution. I have to go and have dinner with them for 3 hours. It's miserable sometimes, right? That's not my personality, but I've learned those skills. And people are like, wow, you're so wonderful with people. And I'm like, that's new for me, right? But I've learned those skills. And I think all the little experiences that I tried out along the way anteed in and helped me figure out what my skills were. And then as I started trying different jobs, I said, oh, these skills really apply to this job. So in my job now, I organize exhibitions, I edit books. That's like a massive project management kind of job that I have to do. Well, that project management of just taking a portrait and moving it through and getting them their order, that was applied. Doing a project management of inventorying that art collection, even though it wasn't photographic, and what I was really interested in was photography, inventorying a bunch of paintings and drawings and sculptures also taught me something. And they're actually now skills I can apply to my job, because I now have 3D photographs. How do I number that? Well, I can go back to that experience I had in college. So I think being creative in what experiences you take on and thinking about how the skills you have can apply to different things and pinpointing what you're good at, and again, just talking to people. This is what I like doing. How do I do more of that? I think it just helps kind of make that path, and you find the people that will help you along the way.
Awesome. Jessica, do you have more?
I do. I'm sorry I jumped ahead.
No, you're fine.
Talking about this gets me really excited, because I'm like, you can do it, everybody. We can all be artists. But to add to that, continue is this, I tell my students a lot, they like to use this word, this is my style, this is my style, this is my style. And I'm thinking about that with regard to this, that you don't know who you are yet. You're still finding yourself. So to try to put yourself in this general bubble, but understand that even in that thing that you think you want, what else could it be? Give yourself a bunch of different career possibilities and kind of, test them out. Take your time. My students so often in their first 2 years, even, they really don't have a lot of clue as to what they want to do, or they find out what they're there for. It's not something they want at all. And that's okay. And they get upset because they spend so much time, but that's life. You're going to have to remake yourself and relearn things over and over again. So just get used to this sort of bobbing and weaving and trying things out and be a person. I think that's what artists do in general, is sort of make something out of nothing, right? So I guess my point would be, the biggest thing, don't put yourself in a corner too soon. Be clear as to what you love, but understand that you don't fully know what you're good at. You don't know what you're capable of. So try things that maybe you didn't even think about and see what happens. That's more, I like to call it tools in the toolbox, right? The more you know about what you don't like, the closer you get to what you do like. So try it all out and stay open. Don't settle. Just keep looking right now. You're young, you're full of life. Go seize the day, right? It's not good. What you're meant to do is not going to leave you, right? It's not going to go away.
That's awesome. I want to go back to school. Oh.
Yeah, I do too. I still do.
So Chris, do you have advice for younger people?
Everything that these ladies have said is so perfect and spot on. I am feeling so inspired right now too. Just to touch on, on what Jamie said, when we're hiring interns and we're hiring employees, even folks who have experience in real world jobs, we find so much more valuable. Even if you're working at a drive-through or any job, you're learning customer service, you're learning valuable skills, and all of that goes into your future career. I worked in retail. I worked in different shops and things and at restaurants, and all of that was so applicable and important for what I'm doing now. So I definitely echo Jamie's statements that, any job that you do, anything you're doing is training for the future. And to Jessica's point, we've all said we took our passions and what we loved and turned it into a career. But you don't have to know what that is immediately. You might not know, like she said, right out of school. Again, it's a journey. We work for a long time
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there's lots of opportunity. Like, you're going to find a different path, even maybe 20 years after you graduate than you have immediately. But I think that for me, just focusing in on, I found out what really was important to me and what I loved, and made it into a career. That has taken different turns over the years, but that's just kind of been my guiding light. And again, all of the experiences I've had from, again, working at Walmart when I was in high school through now, all added up to that.
Great. So do any of you have questions for each other? Is that anything you want to know from anyone else? Or
I would love to hear from Jamie and Jessica what they find most rewarding in their job now. I've been doing my job in some way for 23 years professionally, and I still find excitement and joy in helping introduce people to the arts, in it helping people who aren't in this career path enjoy it on their own terms, and learn about music, learn about art. And that's my favorite thing, is talking to our clients, talking to our guests after a concert or after an exhibit, and finding out how much it touched them and changed their lives. So it can be very rewarding to be in these professions. So I'd love to hear that from both ladies.
Yeah, I'm fortunate that I've sort of landed in a job that allows me to fulfill two different things that I really love that are often two very different jobs in a museum. So one is the curatorial role that I have, which is really developing our collection and understanding what's important to the history of photography and finding those things to add to our collection. And then bringing those back out in the form of an exhibition, or making web posts, or an Instagram post, writing a book, all those kinds of things, and sharing those back to people and interpreting those objects in a way that anybody can understand. So I really enjoy that, creating access to the history of photography and showing people what's important about this particular thing that I'm holding in my hand. Or in the case of other things, like bringing an artist to light and looking at their career and really giving them the attention that I think they deserve. The other side of my job is what I would call collection management. And that is making sure that our collection is safe and housed well and is accessible and is cataloged, and that cataloging leads to accessibility, and preserving that collection. And right now, I am in charge of that as well. So managing our vault, managing the people who are cataloging our collection. And there's nothing I love more than at the end of the day being like, I can find those 100 things and they're cataloged and they have images and they're pretty and people can look at them online and they're accessible. My job is better today, right? So that makes me feel good at the end of the day. So those are the two things I think creating preservation and access goals for our collection and meeting those, and then just interpreting our collection and sharing it with the public.
I would have to say one of it that I just like Jamie, there's many different hats. There's many parts of my job that I love and parts that I would like to go away. But I think that's true in any job, right? I think about that and all the politics that you have to deal with at the university and academia. But that's pretty much everywhere. That happens in museums, it happens like it's just a different bag. So you really have to think about, where do you want to spend your days, dealing with all the stuff that you have to deal with. But what I do love the most, and what reminds me that I'm in the right place, is working with students. And I teach primarily, my favorite is to teach beginning painting. One of the difficulties in a state school at the University of Missouri is that I don't have just art students. I don't have just BFAs. I have BFAs, I have nurses, I have engineers. I have such a variety of students that have never picked up a brush before. So one of the opportunities I have is to watch like the lights go on when somebody realizes they have an ability that they didn't have, or when we talk about color. you learn to understand and see color again for the first time. So much of our brain sort of goes on autopilot and doesn't, pick up these millions of colors that we're able to see. And so when I talk about that with students, and then they come back to me and talk about how walking through a hallway, they stopped and was trying to figure out how to make certain colors that they saw on the wall, and their experience, they're alive again in a very new way. And that is so rewarding to me. And to see people come in very timid and leave like an artist, even if it isn't their major, that creativity and that ability is with them for the rest of their lives. That's what I feel my job is. And I love doing that. I call them painters, even if they're not painters. I say, in my class, you're painters. So they take on the role, and they really do. And it reminds me why I do what I do, because sometimes, again, those politics get in the way and you forget, wait a second, I'm doing what I love. Like, let's just let those politics happen and get back to the studio. So I think my biggest thing is, I don't know what my biggest thing, I guess, I guess the biggest thing is watching people see life again for the first time. So.
Awesome. So I was gonna say, what do you hope for your future? What do you see down the pike for you? Chris, do you have any?
That is a great question, Becky. And, especially for those of us in the performing arts and the museums as well, and higher education, everyone's had a crazy couple of years. The way that we've presented art, the way that we have worked with the community in the last 18 months during COVID has been tremendously different than usual. We relied so much more on virtual experiences, which was good and bad. We were kind of joking before this call that Zoom has made everything so much more accessible to us, which was a huge positive for us during the pandemic. We had concerts that we streamed that went out to all over the world. People from all over the world commented on events we were doing, and that's not possible with just our in-person events. We had to be flexible and pivot so very quickly in order to fulfill our mission and keep doing the art that we do and putting it out to the community. So it was scary and it was very challenging. We don't want that to be our permanent thing. We're so happy to be doing concerts and art exhibits and everything back in person again. But I think that excitement and flexibility and ability to fulfill our mission, even if it wasn't in the same way, was very exciting and inspiring. I've been, like I said, doing this for 23 years. And while this was probably the hardest 18 months of those 23 years, it was also the most fulfilling in a lot of ways because of the way we were all able to come together and still be successful artistically. So for our future, I hope that kind of spirit continues, that we can continue to be flexible, we continue to learn and realize that there's different ways to promote the arts, to put the arts out into the community and make it more accessible for everyone. That's our motto here at the Sheldon, Arts Without Borders. We want to be able to have everybody experience and engage in the arts. And little did we know that we'd have this pandemic as a way to test that theory so quickly. So that's kind of, as I think about how the Sheldon's going to move forward, how I'll move forward in my career, I want to continue to have that ability and those experiences to be able to be flexible, do new things, be innovative, and still present the same quality of art and music that I'm used to doing. So that's where I am.
Great.
That's a hard question because I already have my dream job. It's a job that I never thought I would have. So here I am doing my job. So I think keeping persevering and showing that somebody without a PhD can do this job and is capable of doing this job and can be a leader in our field And also just leading my department and my institution in a way that paves the way for future generations instead of creating walls for them to go back and fix, which is what we're doing. You know, we're probably at 75 years worth of walls that have been put up, barriers that is limiting access and interpretation of our collection. So knocking all of those down and making it easier for the next group of people to care for our collection, but also thinking about ways that our collection can be accessible to more broader populations of people. Like Chris was saying, like, I want everybody to feel comfortable coming and learning about photography. I want our collection to represent everybody. And I also want my staff to be representative of all the populations that we serve. And that's a hard thing to do in the arts right now. So paving the way and making it more accessible for everybody to have a career like this, whether that's being like advocating for better pay, better hours, better structure, and creating ways for people to come in at an entry level and train them here at the museum rather than having to come in with all that experience, providing some right when you come in the door. I think that's a way that we can really expand the knowledge base of people caring for our collection.
This is a really hard question. And I'm like, I'm getting so inspired just by this conversation. But one of the things in the university and academia that I'm really battle is carving out enough time to do my work. A lot of universities in this position, it's important to have a rigorous exhibition schedule and, you know, past, present, and future. And that's difficult when you're teaching classes and dealing with students and trying to just do service to the university. So it's a tricky balance, and every year I try to get a little bit more done or be a little better at it. The other thing, this is going to be silly, but dealing with emails appropriately, accurately, and getting through them in enough time to like be productive. You young people coming into this world, like you probably have a lot more experience with it than I did at your age. But I think being able to contact and communicate with people over the internet and now more Zoom is something that I really have become interested in and think is important to investigate a little more. I know it kind of sounds silly because it's a little thing, but it's so important right now. And as creative people often aren't, that's not their wheelhouse. It's not necessarily what they want to be. They want to be the studio making, but it's really important that you're able to articulate what you're making, what you're doing, but also just communicating with the people who want to show your work, like these wonderful women who are devoted to artists. I mean, we are nothing without them, right? We're nothing without each other. So I think for me, moving forward is about carving out more time to make work, and then, but also being really, 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 really good at communicating and getting opportunities for myself, for my students, for my fellow colleagues, and communicating what we need and what we do. Always looking forward to do that better.
So it's about time to wrap up. I'm so excited that you all joined us this morning, and it has been inspirational. I don't know if you have one last thought that you want to share with everyone, or hard questions this morning.
It is. Jamie, you go ahead. It looks like you have, I'll go after you, Jamie.
I think this is similar to what you said at some point, or Chris said, but my dad always said, do what you would do for free. Like if you had all the money in the world, what would you do? What would you show up to do? So find your skills, find your passion, keep trying things out, and just whittle it down until you find what you do for free.
And don't give up. Like, don't give up. If something puts a wall in front of you, climb that wall. I think life happens and it just doesn't always, almost never goes according to plan. But when you do what you love, when it does happen, you have someplace good to go back to, right? You have something else to rejoin. I would just give a quick, I had a stroke, I had 2 brain injuries, brain surgeries that I deal with. And I believe the ability to take my issues and my new disabilities into the studio with my students saved me, right? My art saved me. I really looked at it. And if I hadn't had that career or that space that I loved going to, that gave me so much, who knows where I would be. But it drives you if you do what you love, and it'll save you and it'll be there for you no matter what.
I think the advice, both of those sets of advice are wonderful. And my only, I think, parting statement is there's not the same path for everybody. And actually, it's not even always higher education for everybody either. You know, we're all coming from a place of having that higher education experience, but that even if you don't have that path in front of you, that does not preclude you from working in the arts. If you have that passion and that ability and that drive, you can find your place in this world. And so that's something I think that I've seen over and over again. And just to Jessica's point, you know, it's don't give up. And even if that college experience is not the path for you, you'll still find your way here.
That's awesome. So Jessica is having an exhibit here at the Sheldon coming up soon, so that's exciting. And so good to see you, Jamie. And thank you, Chris, for jumping on with us last minute. I really appreciate you taking the time to be with us this morning. And it is exciting that we can Zoom with someone from Rochester and from Columbia and still get to hear your voices and hear your stories. So thank you very much. And hopefully we'll see you again soon.
And thank you, Becky, for bringing us together, Chris and Jamie. It's nice to meet you and know more of the art world. So it's been a pleasure.
Same here. Thanks for having me.
Very good. Have a good day, everyone.
Thank you.